The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. Dear God, we ask your blessings on our brother Jonathan this morning as he shares with us the history of your people, the Hebrews, and applies it to our own faith. May we be enriched by this morning's session and be encouraged in our own faith and give us the love of you and our Savior Jesus Christ and our devotion to the cause of peace and justice in the world. Bless us all around these tables. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Good morning. We're now at the fourth of 5 sessions on the track 1 Old Testament lessons for year A. For today's talk, I want to start with a disclaimer. Many of the places on the maps that I'll show today no longer exist, and there are no or even contradictory archaeological data for them. Many locations I'm giving are guesses, not gospel. Take locations cum grano salis. So we left the Israelites at Elim on the Gulf of Suez. They appear to have camped there only a short time. We're going to find that the Israelites were a bit like small children. Are we there yet? I don't wanna. I want to go home, and won't were typical responses to things that happened. In fact, it began when they reached the wilderness of Sin, their first stop after setting out from Elim, only a month since the Exodus, the first Passover, the flight from their homes, and the crossing of the sea. Let's listen to today's first lesson as they arrive at the wilderness of Sin.
A reading from the book of Exodus. The whole congregation of the Israelites complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots and ate our fill of bread. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." Then the Lord said to Moses, "I am going to rain bread from heaven for you, and each day the people shall go out and gather enough for that day. In that way I will test them, whether they will follow my instruction or not. On the 6th day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather on other days." So Moses and Aaron said to all the Israelites, "In the evening you shall know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt, and in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your complaining against the Lord. For what are we that you complain against us?" And Moses said, "When the Lord gives you meat to eat in the evening, and your fill of bread in the morning, because the Lord has heard the complaining that you utter against him, what are we? Your complaining is not against us, but against the Lord." Then Moses said to Aaron, "Say to the whole congregation of the Israelites, 'Draw near to the Lord, for he has heard your complaining.'" And as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the Israelites, they looked toward the wilderness, and the glory of the Lord appeared in a cloud. The Lord spoke to Moses and said, "I have heard the complaining of the Israelites. Say to them, 'At twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall have your fill of bread. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God.'" In the evening, quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the layer of dew lifted, there on the surface of the wilderness was a fine, flaky substance, as fine as frost on the ground. When the Israelites saw it, they said to one another, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, "It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Moses then told the people to gather enough manna for the day and not to try to keep any overnight. So, of course, some of the people kept it overnight, and it bred worms and became foul. On the 6th day, Moses told them to gather twice as much because the next day would be a day of solemn rest, a Sabbath, and there would be no manna on the seventh day. So some of the people went out on the morning of the seventh day and were surprised to find nothing. This annoyed the Lord, who then chewed the people out. The first week's bout of complaining and disobedience over, and the scheme of provisioning understood, we come to today's second lesson.
A reading from the book of Exodus. From the wilderness of Sin, the whole congregation of the Israelites journeyed by stages, as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. The people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water, and the people complained against Moses and said, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt, to kill us and our children and livestock with thirst?" So Moses cried out to the Lord, "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." The Lord said to Moses, "Go on ahead of the people, and take some of the elders of Israel with you. Take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will be standing there in front of you on the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it, so that the people may drink." Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. He called the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled and tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. The Israelites then had their first armed conflict. The desert tribe of Amalek appeared, ready to fight the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses told Joshua ben Nun to choose some men and be the commander in the field. Moses himself would stand at the top of the hill, acting as general with his staff, the staff of God, in his hand. During the battle, Israel prevailed while Moses held up his hand, and Amalek prevailed when Moses' hand was down. Unfortunately, Moses' arm grew tired as the battle continued, so Aaron and Hur, who had gone up the hill with Moses, found a rock on which Moses could sit, and the two of them held up Moses' hands. And with that help, Joshua and his men defeated Amalek and his men. This is the origin of the enmity between Israel and the Amalekites. The Lord said to Moses, "Write this as a reminder in a book and recite it in the hearing of Joshua. I will utterly blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven." And Moses then said, "The Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation." In a chapter that's actually misplaced, there's a temporal cue in it that says it couldn't have been at this time. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, visited the camp, bringing Moses' wife Zipporah and his sons Gershom and Eleazar, and dispensed some good advice about reorganizing the administration of justice. The Israelites left Rephidim and reached Mount Sinai, where they camped on the third new moon after the Israelites had gone out of the land of Egypt. This was a month and a half after they'd left Elim, 2.5 months after the Exodus. Moses was then briefed on the covenant that God was about to make with the Israelites. "Thus you shall say to the Israelites, to the house of Jacob, 'You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession out of all the peoples. Indeed, the whole earth is mine, but you shall be for me a priestly kingdom and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the Israelites.'" Moses then summoned the people and apprised them of what was coming, and the people answered as one, "Everything that the Lord has spoken, we will do." Mark that well. The Lord then told Moses to consecrate the people that day and the next, and to have them wash their clothes, because on the third day, the day after tomorrow, the Lord would come down onto Mount Sinai in the sight of everyone. Mount Sinai itself was to be off limits for everyone, human and animal alike. Any who did trespass were to be stoned. And God did come down onto Sinai and summoned Moses and Aaron to come up, at which point we reach today's third lesson.
A reading from the book of Exodus. God spoke all these words. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol, whether in the form of anything that is in heaven above, or that is on the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not make wrongful use of the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not acquit anyone who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. Honor your father and your mother, so that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or male, or female slave, or ox, or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. When all the people witnessed the thunder and lightning, the sound of the trumpet, and the mountain smoking, they were afraid and trembled and stood at a distance, and said to Moses, You speak to us, and we will listen, but do not let God speak to us, or we will die. Moses said to the people, Do not be afraid, for God has come only to test you and to put the fear of him upon you, so that you do not sin. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. So we've now heard the giving of the 10 Commandments, or Decalogue, which is apodictic law. Moses was up the mountain and down again on a single day, just before God spoke the Decalogue. Oddly, no mention is made of Aaron except for his summoning in the first place. And as you heard, just after Moses came back down, the people told Moses, You speak to us, but not God. We'll die if he does. And Moses said, Don't be afraid. It'll be okay. There follow 3 chapters of regulations which Moses received in thick darkness, but apparently at the foot of the mountain near the people, because in chapter 24, God told Moses, Come up to the Lord, you and Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, the priestly family, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and worship at a distance. It's only after that ceremony of covenant ratification that Moses went up to the mountain to get the tablets and more instruction, and was gone for 40 days and 40 nights. And during that 40 days and nights, Moses received instruction on the Ark of the Covenant, the tabernacle, and lots of other cultic information in Exodus chapters 25 through 31. The tabernacle is important in the story. It's also called the tent of meeting, not because it's a place in which the people met, but it's the place where God met Moses on the march and communicated with him. It was only about 45 feet by 15 feet and about 15 feet tall, and also contained the Ark of the Covenant, a table, a lampstand, and several other bits of holy furniture. So it was a little cluttered inside. At the end of the 7 chapters of cultic information, the text says, when God finished speaking with Moses on Mount Sinai, he gave him the 2 tablets of the covenant, tablets of stone, written with the finger of God. And we come to the 4th lesson, which begins sometime during Moses' 40-day stay on the mountain.
When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered around Aaron and said to him, Come, make gods for us, who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. Aaron said to them, Take off the gold rings that are on the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me. So all the people took off the gold rings from their ears and brought them to Aaron. He took the gold from them, formed it in a mold, and cast an image of a calf. And they said, These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made proclamation and said, "Tomorrow shall be the festival of the Lord." They rose early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought sacrifices of well-being, and the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to revel. The Lord said to Moses, "Go down at once. Your people, whom you brought up out of the land of Egypt, have acted perversely. They have been quick to turn aside from the way that I commanded them. They have cast for themselves an image of a calf and have worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, 'These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt.' The Lord said to Moses, 'I have seen this people, how stiff-necked they are. Now let me alone, so that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them. And of you I will make a great nation.' But Moses implored the Lord his God and said, 'O Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say, it was with evil intent that he brought them out to kill them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce wrath, change your mind, and do not bring disaster on your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, how you swore to them by your own self, saying to them, I will multiply your descendants like the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have promised I will give to your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever.' And the Lord changed his mind about the disaster that he planned to bring on the people." The word of the Lord.
So Moses started down the mountain, bearing the 2 tablets of the covenant written on both sides. He rejoined his assistant, Joshua. And when Joshua heard the noise of the revelry around the golden calf, he thought it was battle noise. He may still have been uneasy about Egyptians or Amalekites. When Moses saw what was actually happening, he completely lost it. He dashed the tablets to the ground, incinerated the golden calf, ground it into powder, sprinkled it on water, and made the Israelites drink it. Moses also told off Aaron, who said more or less, "What could I do? They were restless and wanted gods. So I gathered up gold from them, threw it into the fire, and this calf came out." Aaron was trying to give himself an excuse because that's not quite what happened in the lesson. He took a significantly more active role. The people were running wild. Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, "Who is on the Lord's side? Come to me." All the men of the tribe of Levi came to him, and Moses instructed them to go throughout the camp, killing brother, friend, and neighbor with their swords. And they killed about 3,000 people. Moses then told them, "Today you have ordained yourselves for the service of the Lord, each one at the cost of a son or a brother, and so have brought a blessing on yourselves this day." The next day, Moses apologized to the Lord for the people's apostasy and said, "If you will only forgive their sin, but if not, blot me out of the book that you have written." And God replied, "Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book. When the day comes for punishment, I will punish them for their sin." But God sent a plague on the people anyway to reinforce the lesson, so to speak. God then gave the order to pack up camp and move, saying that he would not march with them for their own safety. And the people mourned. The text then tells the order of service around the tabernacle. To paraphrase Exodus 33, verses 7 to 11, Moses would pitch the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, well outside the camp. Those who sought the Lord gathered outside it. When Moses went to the tent, everyone rose and stood at the entrance to their tents and watched Moses until he entered the tent. the pillar of cloud descended and remained outside the entrance to the tabernacle, and the people rose and bowed down. The Lord spoke face to face with Moses as one speaks to a friend. And afterwards, Moses would return to the camp, but his assistant, Joshua, son of Nun, did not leave the tent. And we reach today's fifth lesson.
Moses said to the Lord, "See, you have said to me, bring up his people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know your name, and you have found favor in my sight. Now, if I have found favor in your sight, show me your ways, so that I may know you and find favor in your sight. Consider, too, that this is a nation of your people." God said, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." And he said to him, "If your presence will not go, do not carry us from here. For how shall it be known that I have found favor in your sight, I and your people, unless you go with us? In this way we shall be distinct, I and your people, from every people on the face of the earth." The Lord said to Moses, "I will do the very thing that you have asked, for you have found favor in my sight, and I found you by name." Moses then said, "Show me your glory, I pray." And God said, "I will make all my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim before you the name, the Lord. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. But," he said, "you cannot see my face, for no one shall see me and live." And the Lord continued, "See, there is a place by me where you will stand on the rock, and while my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft in the rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. God then told Moses to cut 2 new tablets of stone to replace the ones Moses had broken in fury at the golden calf and the dancing and revelry around it. Moses was to bring these tablets up the mountain the next day, and God would write on them what had been on the original tablets. God then renewed or reaffirmed the covenant that he'd already made with the people. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai, the skin of his face was shining, and Aaron and the Israelites were afraid to come near him. It then became Moses' custom to put a veil over his face when he came out from speaking with the Lord in the tabernacle. An interesting aside, the Hebrew root for to shine and a horn is the same word, same 3 consonants. Something that shines shoots out light from it, and a horn shoots out from your head. While translating the Old Testament into Latin, the version known as the Vulgate, St. Jerome rendered that as ignorabat quod cornuta esset facies sua ex consortio sermonis domini. Moses was unaware that his face was horned in the association of a talk with the Lord. If in religious art you see someone who unexpectedly has horns, it's Moses, thanks to Jerome. We're now at the start of chapter 35 of Exodus, and the Israelites are still in the wilderness of Sinai, near, if not in front of, Mount Sinai itself. There follow 41 chapters of cultic matters in the last 6 chapters of Exodus, all 27 chapters of Leviticus, and the first 8 chapters of Numbers. The nature of burnt offerings, grain offerings, offerings of well-being, sin offerings, and guilt offerings, how the priests should conduct the offerings, the ordination of priests, clean and unclean animals, the diagnosis and cleansing of leprosy, something that both fascinated and terrified me when I was a child in parochial school, and on and on and on. I could spend months going over that in forum, but that's not going to happen. There are several interesting events reported amongst these cultic matters. In Exodus 40, the tabernacle was set up in the first month, in the second year, on the first day of the month, 9.5 months after making camp at Sinai. Constructing the tabernacle and dealing with various other things took a significant amount of time. In Leviticus 10, Nadab and Abihu, Aaron's eldest sons, presented incense offerings before the Lord, an act which was not theirs to perform, and fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. In Numbers 1, there's a census of the people from which the about 600,000 men in the Exodus was back-figured. In Numbers 6, verses 22 to 27, we encounter the Aaronic benediction. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. The Aaronic benediction may be used in the order of worship for the evening on pages 109 to 114 of the prayer book. This is not the same thing as evening prayer. And it's used at the committal in the burial service on pages 485 and 501 in the prayer book. In Numbers 10, verses 11 to 13, in the second year, in the second month, on the 20th day of the month, the cloud lifted from over the tabernacle of the covenant. Then the Israelites set out by stages from the wilderness of Sinai, and the cloud settled down in the wilderness of Paran. They set out for the first time at the command of the Lord by Moses. Finally, we get some movement about 11 months and 2 entire biblical books after their arrival at Sinai. And then the people complained about their misfortunes, and the fire of the Lord burned against them. The rabble among them wept again, remembering the variety of food that they had had in Egypt: fish, cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, garlic, and were unhappy at the sight, and apparently the prospect, of manna, and more manna ahead of them. God answered them with quails again. They fell 2 cubits deep, that's about 3 feet, on the ground. But the Lord's anger was also kindled, and he sent a plague among the people. Moses complained about the unremitting and unreasonable demands of the people on him. So the Lord had him gather 70 of the elders and took some of the spirit he had placed on Moses and transferred it to the 70 elders, who then prophesied for the first and only time. But 2 more men, Eldad and Medad, who were not among the 70, prophesied in the camp. And Joshua became indignant and asked, nearly ordered, Moses to stop them. Moses declined, having been relieved of at least some of the responsibility for the people. Miriam and Aaron spoke against their brother Moses because Zipporah, his wife, was a Midianite, called a Cushite here, rather than an Israelite. And they said, "Has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us also?" The Lord was angered at this, and Miriam, but not Aaron, was struck with leprosy. Aaron begged that she not be suffer in this manner, and the Lord said to Moses, "If her father had but spit in her face, would she not bear her shame for 7 days? Let her be shut out of the camp for 7 days, and after that she may be brought in again." 12 spies were sent into Canaan to reconnoiter. They brought back choice agricultural produce, but most were also cowed by the inhabitants' likely tenacity. The people cravenly wanted to choose a captain to lead them back into Egypt. Caleb, one of the spies, said that was silly because the Lord would bring them into the land if he remained pleased with them. The Lord then said that of all those who had seen what the Lord had done in Egypt and in the wilderness, yet complained and disobeyed, only Caleb would live to see the promised land. And the Lord said to turn back. Then the people had a change of heart and decided to go into the land. The Lord was not with them. He'd told them to set out for the wilderness, and the Amalekites and Canaanites in the area beat the stuffing out of them. He also said that none of this generation who had seen his mighty deeds and yet refused to obey him would enter the promised land, and that they and their children would wander the desert for 40 years until all this generation died. Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, some of the Levites, decided that Moses was taking too much authority, saying, "All the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. So why then do you exalt yourselves above the assembly of the Lord?" And the Lord caused the earth to swallow up Korah and his followers. And the very next day, the people told Moses, "You have killed the people of the Lord." At which the Lord sent a plague that killed 14,700 Israelites. Miriam, the elder sister of Moses and Aaron, died and was buried in Kadesh. At another stop, the people complained that there was yet again no water. The Lord told Moses to take his staff, assemble the people, stand before a certain rock, and command it to yield its water. Moses did so, except he struck the rock, as he did once before in today's second reading. He didn't just command the rock. For this disobedience, the Lord said that Moses would not be the one to bring the Israelites into the promised land. When the people came to Mount Hor, God said, "Let Aaron be gathered to his people." That is, Aaron is about to die. And indeed, Moses, Aaron, and Aaron's son Eleazar went up Mount Hor. Moses stripped Aaron of his priestly vestments and put them on Eleazar, and Aaron died at the top of the mountain. All the Israelites then mourned for Aaron for 30 days. The people grew impatient when they had to make a detour around Edom, and the Lord sent poisonous serpents among them. The people repented, and the Lord told Moses to make a bronze replica of a serpent and put it on a pole. Anyone bitten by a serpent who then looked on the brazen serpent was healed. The current king of Moab, Balak son of Zippor, sent for Balaam son of Beor, who lived on the Euphrates, to come curse the Israelites for him. Balaam came, but guided by visions sent by the Lord, ended up blessing the Israelites, much to Balak's chagrin. In Numbers chapter 26, God told Moses and Aaron's son Eleazar to take a census of the people. This was to determine how land in the promised land would be apportioned. The larger the tribe, the larger the region they'd be allotted. Distribution was to be made to all the males. Now, Zelophehad was a member of the tribe of Manasseh, and he died in the wilderness. He had 5 daughters, but no sons. The daughters, Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah, came before what I might call the council and asked why their father's name should be struck from the clan simply because he had had no sons, and requested a possession of land among what would be the tribe's holdings. This was a matter weighty enough that Moses brought it before the Lord, who said, "The daughters are right. Give them an inheritance along with the men, and make it the rule that a man's inherited holding passes first to his son. If he has no son, to his daughter. If he has no daughter, then to his brother. If he has no brother, then to his father's brother. And if his father has no brother, then to the nearest kinsman of his clan." In chapter 36, the clan heads of Manasseh told Moses and the other clan heads, "Giving an inheritance to a daughter is all well and good, but if they marry outside the tribe, then in the Jubilee year, that land will pass to a different tribe." That's not right. And again, Moses consulted the Lord, who said, "The clan heads are right too. A daughter who receives an inheritance may marry whom she likes, provided the man is from her father's tribe. The land may then pass from clan to clan, but it will remain in the tribe's holdings." And Mahlah, Tirzah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Noah did then marry men of the tribe of Manasseh. Numbers 33 contains a brief catalog of the Israelites' movements from the time they left Ramses in Egypt until they camped across the Jordan from Jericho. And Numbers 33-38 says, "Aaron the priest went up Mount Hor at the command of the Lord and died there in the 40th year after the Israelites had come out of the land of Egypt. we can presume that the 40 years of being shepherds in the wilderness are over. And indeed, Numbers 20 and 21 have this partial sequence of events. Moses sent messengers to the king of Edom asking for passage through his territory by way of the king's highway, but the king of Edom denied the request. Aaron died, as noted. The Israelites defeated and destroyed the Canaanites in the Negeb. The incident of the poisonous serpents and the brazen serpent occurred, as noted. And the Israelites continued northward and defeated King Sihon of the Amorites and King Og of Bashan. So at this point, the Israelites were clearly on the move to the Jordan crossing. The tribes of Reuben and Gad had large herds of cattle, and Gilead and Bashan, Sihon and Og's lands, were well suited to cattle raising. So the Reubenites and Gadites asked that those lands be allotted to them. The Reubenites and Gadites had to pledge to be in the forefront of the military force that would subdue Canaan itself before Moses would permit this allocation, and half the tribe of Manasseh became part of this allocation. So now, at the end of the book of Numbers, the Israelites were camped on the eastern side of the Jordan, waiting to cross. The book of Deuteronomy contains a series of long speeches by Moses given at this final campsite. The speeches recapitulated everything that had happened since the flight from Egypt. Moses then recited a song contrasting God's faithfulness with Israel's faithlessness and pronounced a long blessing over the Israelites. And we come, finally, to today's sixth lesson.
Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, which is opposite Jericho. And the Lord showed him the whole land, Gilead as far as Dan, all Naphtali, the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, and the land of Judah as far as the western sea, the Negeb and the plain, that is, the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees, as far as Zoar. The Lord said to him, "This is the land of which I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you now shall not cross over there." Then Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab at the Lord's command. He was buried in a valley in the land of Moab opposite Beth-Por, but no one knows his burial place to this day. Moses was 120 years old when he died. His sight was unimpaired, and his vigor had not abated. The Israelites wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days. Then the period of mourning for Moses was ended. Joshua, son of Nun, was full of the spirit of wisdom because Moses had laid his hands on him. And the Israelites obeyed him, doing as the Lord had commanded Moses. Never since has there arisen a prophet in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. He was unequaled for all the signs and wonders that the Lord sent him to perform in the land of Egypt, against Pharaoh and all his servants and his entire land, and for all the mighty deeds and all the terrifying displays of power that Moses performed in the sight of all Israel. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. The lesson said that Moses was 120 when he died. In Exodus 7, verse 7, before Moses went to confront Pharaoh, Moses was 80. Tradition has it that he was 40 when he fled Egypt for Midian after he'd killed an Egyptian, breaking his life into 3 40-year periods. 40 years a prince of Egypt, 40 years a herdsman in Midian, and 40 years leading the Israelites out of Egypt and into the promised land. Next time, on August 23rd, we'll look at the Israelites as they crossed the Jordan and see what happened afterward. That's it, folks.